I would say to follow your interest into what seems like something that is both an overlap of your skill set with what the needs are of the market. And that is what has served me and brought me into product. And that it is worth planning out where you see yourself, but that if you don't see the big picture right now, that sometimes it can appear as you try those different things, kind of applying a product lens to your own career.
Welcome back to another episode of Product Unfiltered. Today we have a very special guest joining in, Patrice Hall, a seasoned product leader with a wealth of experience in building innovative product teams and driving visionary strategies. Patrice, a CMU alum where she majored in software management, brings a unique blend of technical expertise and strategic acumen to the table. With over 10 years of expertise in the industry, Patrice has been at the forefront of many innovative product launches and has a deep understanding of emerging technologies in e-commerce and SaaS. Currently serving as a director of product at Dopple, Patrice is instrumental in driving the company's growth and success through a strategic product leadership. Prior to joining Dopple, Patrice led the charge in the ARVR 3D space planning SaaS platform at a venture-funded startup, where she played a pivotal role in achieving product market fit. We are glad to have Patrice on the show today. Thank you so much, Patrice, for joining in.
Thank you for having me. So excited to talk with you.
And Patrice, before actually diving deep into the exciting world of product management, AR/VR, and 3D, would love to learn more about your experience being a product manager. How has the journey been? How did you transition into product management and specifically the AR/VR domain?
Sure, it's been a long journey. I started my career as a designer, working with brands, creating websites, and after a while doing that, I felt like I really wanted to build something that could develop over time. And so I sought out a startup that was nearby that I had friends that worked at, and began working there. And that really started that shift into tech and toward product. Along the way, I was a content strategist, an event manager, a project manager, and at the time I felt a little lost. But now that I'm working in product leadership, I see how all of those things built together and now can give me the ability to shape things and to work with different teams across teams, because with product you need to be good at so many different things. So at that startup, I did work in AR and VR. We found product market fit in the 3D spatial planning environment, and that is what led me to want to get my master's degree at CMU, something we all have in common. And I really wanted to, if I was going to be working in the product space, I wanted to have the knowledge and the foundation to really know what I was doing, and to be able to be a leader that could help people. So that then led me to Williams-Sonoma. I wanted to do that at a larger scale. And I was working again in the spatial planning and AR visualization space for people who are shopping for furniture. And then really wanted to get back to startup where I could impact the company, the culture, and our business overall. And so that is what led me to Dopple.
Yeah, that's amazing to hear, Patrice. Starting from content to events to product, the journey has been amazing for sure. But we'd also want you to break down the industry, and if you can help our listeners understand, firstly, what is AR/VR space and how does AR/VR plays a significant role in e-commerce space where you're working? And because there are a lot of applications to it, but people might not know what's the potential of the market right now. So if you can help us understand the industry.
That's a great question. So augmented reality, virtual reality are two sides of a coin, where augmented reality is your your space that you see in front of you and having a digital layer that you can interact with on top of that space. So, for example, being able to see a chair that you might want to buy, seeing that, what would that look like in my corner of my room? And virtual reality is then a layer that is removed from your actual reality typically. So it's used a lot in gaming or in entertainment experiences where you're completely immersed in another world. It feels like you're in that environment, but doesn't necessarily have a connection to the room you are in. So that's a start on what those two technologies are. And then those are also both, one of the foundations of both of those is 3D. So the objects or the environment that you're in, they feel like they are not just, you know, a flat screen that you're looking at. Feels like it's really there in front of you. And that is really interesting for e-commerce because e-commerce has gone through a number of transitions over the last, 20 years, from physical retail to digital, from digital retail that happened initially on desktops in the early aughts to mostly on mobile being the primary driver, and especially the primary driver of the first part of a buyer's journey, often checking something out on your phone. And now it's more toward how do you make that digital experience feel more real. So we're seeing, imagery is table stakes. Video has come up and it is becoming table stakes, something feeling like it's in motion, and now something feeling like it has depth and is real and you can interact with it and make it yours. Personalization, all of those factors are combining into really becoming an expectation of customers in e-commerce. And so we're seeing both the big players in e-commerce, Amazon, IKEA, they are really at the forefront of putting 3D into their experiences. And you're also seeing smaller shops using 3D as a way to differentiate themselves and disrupt and get attention in that difficult D2C market.
So, Patrice, we have seen that ARVR in the e-commerce space is very new and a lot of nuances are there which still needs to be unfolded. In this particular scenario, as a product leader, how do you tend to find the right product market fit while building products in this industry?
That is one of the most exciting things about being at a startup, where if you're working at an established company, like when I was at Williams-Sonoma, you really have the map laid out for you. You know who your customers are, who they will be next year, and you can shift a little bit. It's steering a large ship. But at Dopple, working at a startup, we really have a broad range of possible futures in front of us. So looking at product market fit and what the market needs is a really big part of my job. So I look at what are shoppers doing, and I do a lot of research, primary research with folks who are running brands online that need to reach customers. And I interview them about their processes. So that's kind of my design training coming up, where I don't just want to ask them what they think they need, but I want to understand their process. And then I can come up with things that they haven't thought of yet that they may need. So product market fit is something that we work on in the industry for what are the use cases? Someone who is shopping for something that is highly visual. Let's say you are shopping for a new bicycle and you want to make sure that the gears and the handlebars are exactly something that will fit your particular needs. That is a good use case for 3D, where you really want to be able to touch that online and be able to move it around and really understand before you make that larger purchase.
Yeah. And Patrice, like something very interesting about the AR/VR space is that it's not a very conventional field. Earlier, being a product manager in this domain also involves an element of uncertainty in which you do not know that how the product will be perceived by the end audience, unlike other conventional industries where you can see a very similar pattern with other products. So how do you overcome these challenges when you develop any product? Is it through a MVP development phase, or how exactly is that process? Would love to know.
That's a great question. So I've done a couple of things in the past with, even using paper prototypes to get away from even the suggestion of a wireframe, so that I could really see how an end user would naturally try to move something around in space. So that's something that I've tried, but also, working with proof of concepts internally and externally. So one of the things that we do at Dopple, we have an internal team that also works on 3D and AR experiences, and learning from their use lets us more rapidly prototype and shape products that then can be used with clients.
And a quick follow-up, Patrice, what about user feedback? In a very similar way, getting user feedback on conventional products is a lot more easier because you have all these platforms and tools available in the market. You can gather heat maps, you can gather many data points. But what about getting user feedback in the ARVR domain? Would love to know more about that.
Yes, that's so important too. And one of the things that can be different about 3D and AR is it's more difficult to see how it's used, because it's not a flat medium. So a couple things that we think about are, one, how do we instrument our analytics differently so that we can get that rich feedback, so it doesn't, instead of becoming a black box, it becomes a richer source of data than you even had before. That's something that we work on for ourselves as well as for our clients. And it's one of the points of differentiation for Dopple, that we are providing that layer of product intelligence on top of 3D and AR experiences. And then for ourselves, doing that primary research where I'm watching over someone's shoulder if I need to see how are they really using something. And that gives you that really valuable behavioral primary data.
Patrice, can you also share one of the interesting product which you have built in the past, and can you take us through the entire journey of how did you start figuring out what needs to be built and how did you eventually build it, so that our listeners understand an end-to-end product development cycle in this particular domain?
Wow, that is a great question. So I will talk about developing augmented reality at Williams-Sonoma, where it was something that took some trial and error to really find the exact use case that would work well. And Williams-Sonoma had a large team that was working on not just AR, but also 3D as a really core element of how products were developed and merchandised. And so I focused on, how do people who are shopping for an entire room, how do they go about designing that room, combining products, and then visualizing them toward the end of that journey to say, is this the right chair for me? Is this the right side table? Tested it out on one of the, Williams-Sonoma has 5 different brands, tested it out on one of the brands and found that it wasn't quite the right use case. It wasn't resonating with users, and ran an A/B test, and then moved on to a different use case inside an app. And so that launched last year, the Pottery Barn Kids app. And so it was a slightly different audience, and it was a slightly different use case, people who were more planning a new room. And that really resonated with users, and was a better product launch. So going through those different tests of what's the exact right fit and the right audience that would be able to be that early adopter audience of this technology that not everyone knows about when it comes to augmented reality. Folks are a lot more familiar with 3D and often don't even realize that they expect it so much. But the stats in the industry show actually like 80% or more of customers expect to see something in 3D, especially if it's a large purchase.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, Patrice, in this industry, there needs a lot of education which goes to the customer, because at many instances they don't even know what to expect.
For
So,
sure.
how do you figure out that particular challenge where you're building something which also needs education to be given to the end user, and also expose them to the world? Okay, these are the possibilities, and you should go wider to your expectations because we are building it for you.
So that is something that we have a couple tiers of at Dopple. One, education for end buyers. They need it's kind of a progressive discovery when it comes to someone who is shopping for, let's say, that bicycle. They need to know, one, you are seeing a 3D experience, and on your screen, if it moves when you first see it, then you know that you can interact with it. So having that proven user experience that will draw out engagement is important. So that's something that we do with the UX of those first-time customers. And then when it comes to our clients at Dopple, folks who are running these direct-to-consumer brands or sometimes B2B companies, that they know that they want 3D, they want a disruptive or an engaging customer experience. They want something that will increase their conversion rates. They want something that will bring them more product intelligence, insights about how customers are experiencing their products. But there's this information gap for brands of, how do I get 3D? It's such a deep process of developing the 3D models and making them performant on the web and making them configurable so you can change the color or some of the features of something. So it's something that we put out a lot of documentation about. We write blog posts about how-to guides about what the best practices are. And we have found that partnering with clients who are innovators in their fields and understand that it's not a big bang, it's an iterative process with each client, that's what has helped us.
Yeah, and Patrice, this is something really interesting. Like, you were talking both about the customers as well as your clients. Now, if I talk about the client base, I really want to understand how clients perceive the AR/VR technology. Do they perceive this as a painkiller, which is solving any very dire customer need, something which customers are really wanting, or is it a vitamin which kind of enhances the overall experience? Because I think having this clear distinction really helps you as a product manager to sell it that way to the client.
For sure. And that is a great metaphor, painkiller versus vitamin. I would say it's mostly, and the way I like to market it is as a vitamin. So it's something that will, a lot of our clients are looking for a standout, remarkable customer experience that will bring in more lifetime value and will also increase conversion rates. But it's also kind of a 1-2 punch where, yes, it helps with growth of revenue, and it helps with product understanding that will then generate even more revenue down the road. But it also is a cost savings where you can save on photography costs, videography costs, and faster time to market. So it's got a lot of benefits, but I like to focus on the primary benefit of growth.
And yeah, and Patrice, while you were talking about being the AR/VR technology being a vitamin instead of a painkiller, now something which we have observed personally for products which are more of vitamin is that when you market these products, it's mostly a push effect rather than a pull effect from the client. That is because the client knows that, okay, we can sustain without having these technologies in place. What happens is they don't have this very urgent need of integrating these technologies within their product, in which marketing plays a very important role, and you have to push the product to these consumers. So what are some challenges which you face marketing or converting clientele to Dopple or to any AR/VR technology you have worked on?
As a startup, I would say our primary challenge right now is just finding those clients that are a really good fit for us and those that we are a great fit for them. So I would say we are finding our product market fit, especially in the industries of sporting goods, where it's something that's very visual, very tactile, and its motion is part of sporting. So, it's I like you're saying push and pull. It's really finding each other right now and trying out what are those product features where we can build value and become more of a differentiator for our clients. So they're looking for what can make them a differentiator, what can be a differentiator for them, and we are also looking for what are those key competitive advantage features for us.
So, Patrice, now there might be a lot of listeners who are hearing ARVR in the e-commerce space for the first time, or they might not be very acquainted with this. Do you have any top of your head stats which you can throw to help people understand the impact which ARVR is bringing in e-commerce space, or how is it helping people disrupt the domain? Any stats or figures which you have?
Yes. So at some of the big players in the space, Shopify is a great one, and they are, I want to say, they're one of, if not the fastest growing e-commerce platform out there, especially for small and medium-sized businesses. They have a stat that is something like 90% increase in conversion rates for customers that use 3D or AR. So that's, turning those 1% of customers that convert into 2% is huge for a retail business. So it's really powerful when it comes to conversion rates leading to revenue, but then also decreased returns is a big one. I don't have a stat handy on that, but I know that it has an impact on returns. But I really like to focus on the conversion and the overall customer experience that leads to greater lifetime value.
Okay. Any other success metric which you track on while building product in this industry? Like, how do you make sure that your product is successful?
I like to start with leading metrics. So who are the users? Are we getting a high percentage of people that are trying this feature, interacting with the feature, and then how deep does the engagement go? So looking at, and also pulling in my e-commerce history, I look at, okay, who saw the feature? What percentage of them interacted with it? And then how deep do they go? So did they turn the 3D model? Did they view an AR? Did they change the colors? And how do we get each of those steps? How do we reduce friction for people to go further down the funnel? So those are some of the early KPIs I look at. And then let's see, what are the other, are we developing, or are we delivering that return on investment for our clients? That's something I start with our clients. We have an excellent sales and account team. They really partner with the clients on understanding what their needs are. But I also like to join those calls so I can understand their needs firsthand. So I like to talk to the clients about what are they, what are they really looking for in terms of outcome, and how far are we along delivering that?
And that's really interesting, Patrice. In fact, now shifting gears to transitioning into AR/VR product management. You have been in the AR/VR industry for so long. So a conception for many budding product managers who really want to get into this industry is, what role does the technology play in becoming a AR/VR product manager? Do you need to be very proficient with 3D modeling or AR/VR? Or is it something which you learn throughout the process once you become a product manager? Would love to know your insights over that.
For me, I learned both at once when I was at my last startup. So I guess I am proof that you can learn it on the job. But having that experience definitely helped me coming to Dopple. The Dopple team liked that I already knew the language and could plan products with that in mind. And so that definitely helped me over the last, I think it's been 10 months now. So I was able to jump into Dopple on day one and be able to speak from a leadership perspective instead of having to train on, new company and new technology. But the things that are unique about 3D and AR are understanding some of the underlying technology and how that drives what we can build, because we're building on top of the standards, and so we follow the Kronos group, and what they're driving toward is more standardization for 3D and making sure that it can work on all platforms. So following that underlying technology is important, as well as being able to discuss the unique aspects of 3D with both development and design teams. So things like understanding the difference between how models are created, at the mesh level, the geometry of a model, the shape of it, and the textures and materials that make up the surface layer that you actually see. Mm-hmm. So being able to discuss those things and troubleshoot is really helpful as well. But it's something that you can, anyone can pick up, and it's a nuance of any industry.
Mm-hmm. Patrice, we would also love to know from you. So this is coming from an aspiring product manager that they are very confused about, do they need to take some formal education before entering into the product space or not? So how has a CMU helped you deep dive into the product space, or was it helpful? In what terms did it help you to find your fit in the product space?
CMU was key to me being a good candidate as a product manager. So I made my way into product, I guess, before and during my time at CMU, but I knew that to be able to lead in product, I needed to know the frameworks of product, and I needed the confidence to be able to lead. So things like the ability to plan strategy and to understand that, and how cloud architecture works, and the combination of how to read financial reports and understand them, along with metrics that some of the courses at CMU and the practice at CMU. I really loved the team focus, the teamwork and team projects. So having those under my belt gave me the confidence and the knowledge that I really needed to present myself. And the same week that I graduated at Carnegie Mellon was the same week that I started as a senior product manager at Williams-Sonoma. So it made me feel like I'm completely ready. And when I make recommendations for product, I know that I am drawing that from data and not just inventing the wheel each time.
Yeah.
That is really interesting, Patrice. This is something which me and Rahul have also experienced, especially the focus on teamwork is something we have learned through all these courses of product management at CMU. So we are glad that you also had such an enriching experience and that helped you pave a way into the world of product management. So Patrice, thank you so much for sharing all these wonderful insights. Now we are towards the end of a podcast. So would love to know about what resources, podcasts or episodes which you follow to stay updated with all the product management trends in the industry.
Sure. So I was just telling Rahul how much I appreciated that you had the author of Loved on your last episode that I listened to. So really been enjoying your podcast. A few podcasts and audiobooks that I listen to, the Hard Fork podcasts about emerging tech. I enjoy that one. the Lex Friedman podcast is one that one of my fellow Dopple teammates told me about that I've been listening to. He's an AI researcher, but he really does these deep dive interviews, and I think he does a great job of looking into humanity and how that connects to developing technology. I recently read a book called Thinking in Bets, and that I think I both sometimes I mix it up between physical books and audiobooks, but I did both for that one, where it's about decision making and taking risk, and I think that's important for product managers. So I like to keep audiobooks streaming so I can go deep on different subjects. And then one that in my email feed, I listen or I read TLDR AI. I like that it just really summarizes what's going on, especially in that industry, keeping up with new developments.
That's great. No, and Patrice, like this question is from my side. I'm really interested in the ARVR industry, and as you mentioned, having some knowledge about the ARVR or 3D domain always helps you transition into product management in this domain. So, are there any resources present on the internet which aspiring PMs like me can follow to learn more about this industry, and which can really help us learn the basics and terminologies of the ARVR domain?
Sure. I would say look at the Kronos group, look at a couple resources. Babylon is one of the engines of our platform. And Unity is definitely one that I follow, 3D gaming engine, but also used for commercial use. The Augmented World Expo that happened a couple weeks ago, a lot of talks in that will help you get started in that industry. And another podcast, the Vergecast, they talk a lot about 3D and VR and AR.
So, Patrice, now since you started as a product manager, now you're a product leader. We would also want to know from a product leader's lens, what are some of the top skill sets or top qualities you look for while you're hiring someone in the team or someone who is coming fresh out in the market as a product manager? What are some of the top skill sets you would suggest them to have?
That's a great question. One that I look for, the number one thing I look for is, can I collaborate with this person? So are you someone who listens as much as you talk? Are you curious? That those things are really important, especially in product, and to always be learning. Ability to make good decisions is really important, and kind of having frameworks for those decisions that align well with the others at your company will help. And that's also, important in any role, but very much so in product. You are almost a professional decision maker. And kind of within that, being able to prioritize is so important, both in the features and the products you're building, but also in your own time management. So I look for folks that really are obsessive about spending their time wisely. I think those are, and really an understanding of user behavior can be very important for product managers.
That's true. Well, thank you so much, Patrice, for sharing all those key skill sets or key things you look for. I'm sure all aspiring product managers listening to this will start developing those. But any last minute advice or feedback or anything which you see that aspiring product managers are not doing and they should be doing, or advices for aspiring product managers from your side?
Wow. I would say to follow your interest into what seems like something that is both an overlap of your skill set with what the needs are of the market, And that is what has served me and brought me into product. And that it is worth planning out where you see yourself, but that if you don't see the big picture right now, that sometimes it can appear as you try those different things, kind of applying a product lens to your own career, to test and iterate and see what works. And I am curious what you two are following and reading in the industry, and how do you keep up with what's happening in product and tech?
So for me personally, for product specific things, again, the curriculum is definitely helping a lot. Apart from that, if you go to LinkedIn, there's so many people who are great mentors on helping people a lot. For example, if you check out Shreyas Doshi or Lenny's podcast, all those are like the go-to resources for every aspiring product manager. I would say, at least in the Bay Area, I've seen that. So those are my go-to resource. I'm a big time YouTube bug, so I spend most of my day in YouTube just listening to random podcasts, random people talking about technology. So that helps me to keep myself updated, and also it gives me a lot of other perspectives. So what I've seen is if you follow two or three content creators, then your thought process aligns to them. But if you keep on experimenting with the more and more new content creators, you get a lot of different perspectives. Okay, how X person thinks, how Y person thinks, how their audience thinks. So for me, navigating to different people, seeing what they're building, it really helps me to find my niche or what should I be working on.
That's great. I love that perspective. I also agree with you on Lenny's podcast. I've learned a lot from that one.
Yeah.
No, yeah, and in fact, adding to Rahul's point, something which me and Rahul have been experienced from the past few months being in Bay Area is attending so many product conferences. So conferences around product management, product marketing, cybersecurity, data, all, going there, meeting with product leaders and gaining insights from all those wonderful talks really help us stay updated about the industry. And secondly, the experience with Product Unfiltered has been truly amazing, meeting product leaders like you and learning about your experiences. So I think this has really helped us shape our product management career and knowledge so far.
That's great.
Well, Patrice, I know there's a lot to unfold more in the ARVR space and in the tech domain, but we'll keep that for a few more episodes in the future whenever you have some time for that. This officially brings us to the end of today's podcast. Hope you all enjoyed the episode and our discussion has helped learn something new. Stay tuned for more such exciting episodes. Thank you so much for tuning into Product Unfiltered.
Great talking with you.